Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're live. Welcome back, everybody. I remember last year, before Rosh Hashanah, we were looking at the transition from the ayin into the pet, and people were coming up with all sorts of interesting ideas. That Tafshin ayin was about the eyes and how we perceive the world, and Tafshin pet is all about the mouth. And boy, were they right, but not the way that you and I imagined it. What an interesting year it's been. It started out really great, and then comes Purim. We're halfway through, and massive nosedive. We're preparing for Rosh Hashanah again, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we don't do the same mistakes as we did last year. How are we preparing to make sure that this year, this Rosh Hashanah, is uniquely different than our experiences last year? So let's talk a little bit about what the day is and see if we could figure out if we can get some inspiration and try to build ourselves up for Rosh Hashanah. So we have a couple of questions. Number one is, why is it called Rosh Hashanah? Right? It's a strange name. Call it Hatchalat Hashanah, beginning of the year. Call it Reshit Hashanah, first of the year. Why is it called Rosh Hashanah? I'm going to be dealing with that question. And then on the way, hopefully we'll take some ideas together and inspire ourselves to have a better Rosh Hashanah. So, number one, let's just talk about Yom Hadin. It says that Shmuel Hanavi in the Midrash, that he passed away. And there was a sorceress who was trying to call down his soul and trying to get him to speak to Shaul. And it says that Shmuel in Gan Eden, however we understand this, is freaking out that there's a judgment that's happening and that he might be rejudged again. That here's a guy who is terrified, a guy in Gan Eden is afraid. Shmuel Hanavi is afraid. He has fear of standing in din, in judgment. Why am I sharing that? Rosh Hashanah is Yom Hadin. Most of us don't really feel the dread, the panic of the day. And I think the reason for that is because we don't really understand what our new year is. What is our Rosh Hashanah? So, Chachamim tell us that the holiday itself is unique because it's not just the change in the calendar. It's a celebration of the potential of man. You see, on Rosh Hashanah, that is the day that God created Adam. And what we're celebrating is Adam at his pristine state of perfection. A person who, in that first 9 hours of creation, was able to emanate light from his body. He was a luminous being. You saw Adam in his totality, his greatness. So Rosh Hashanah is about tapping into the greatest potential of myself, which is why we believe it's called the Rosh Hashanah. What makes your head different than any other part of your body? Well, it's got my brain. It has my 5 senses. And my senses and my brain, my mind, is what makes me uniquely different. I'll explain. If I lift up my arms right now, right? I'm like 5'10", now I'm about 6'2", right? I stand on a chair and maybe I'm like 6'8". But my mind, when I say Ana Hashem Hoshiana on Rosh Hashanah, my mind becomes unified with the infinite. A finite being can connect to the infinite. And more than that, the Chachamim tell us that when we say those words, we're able to actually move an infinite being from the Kisei Ha-Din to the Kisei Ha-Rachamim. That's the power that you have. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. So how do we just stroll into the day? Right? We just walk into Rosh Hashanah. So no, we have our slichot, we're preparing. Hopefully we're singing our songs, we're getting into the mood. We're preparing ourselves for that moment, but not just for the lip service of Ana Hashem Hoshiana, not for all the beautiful nigunim that we sing in our slichot either, but it's about taking these ideas and making it real, moving it from the mind, from the heart to the mind. That's the greatest distance in the world. That we want to try to breach that chasm over there. So how do we do it? We say Hayom Harat Olam. I'm going to say it over and over again. I'm going to say it over and over again. Why is that the mantra? The Brisker Rav says that if you want to understand the essence of a human being, you could only see it for the first week of their existence. And then after that, they are very much influenced by nurture and nature. There's a pristine place that we are all born perfect. And at some point, our perfection, our mitziut, is impacted by our environment, our family, their greatness and their shortcomings, our community, their greatness and their shortcomings, the time, the environment we're in, greatness and their shortcomings. But there's something deep within each of us that is lost. And Rosh Hashanah is the one day a year, the birthday of man, that we're able to tap back into that power, into that potential. Chachamim ask, they say this, the Vilna Gaon, he says that the first thing Hashem created, the first Ma'amar, the Seret Ma'amarot that God used to create the world was Bereshit. And Bereshit means beginning, beginning means time. I think the first thing God created is a beginning, a middle, and an end, which means God creates time. So he asks, how much time did God create? Is time infinite or finite? And the Vilna Gaon says that time is finite. And how much time did he create? 1 year. That's it. That's all we got. 1 year. And then all that happens in a Shana is a repetition of the Shana. Every year it's the repetition. The same power is latent every single year, over and over again. It's not infinite. And Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of that potential. Rosh Hashanah is when we are launching mankind, launching ourselves. The question is, where do we want to go? What do we want to be? You see, Rosh Hashanah is not just the time where we dip the apple in the honey, like we just heard, even though that's really nice and that's important, right? And it's not about the simanim, because that's also important. It's not about, I'm not sure about you, but my family minhag is we actually have a ram's head at the table. And every year we joke about, why is it always smiling at us? It has no, you see the teeth, it's always smiling. These ideas are there as a metaphor. That's not the purpose of the holiday. It's not just me sitting there and eating and having a nice sweet things, dipping my challah into the dvash. That's a nice thing, but why am I doing that? Because I want a new year. Well, what does that mean, l'maaseh? How do I take the idea and move it into action? And every moment of Rosh Hashanah is, how are you using your mind to transform your reality? Because your reality is a reflection of your choices. Your mitziut is an expression of the choices you have made up until now. And if you want next year to be different, the question is, how are you changing your mindset? That is what the power of Rosh Hashanah is, the power to change the mindset. The tefillah itself, the malchiot, coronating God as the king. He is infinite and has the power to change anything in a moment's notice. All we have to do is ask. That's bakasha, that's what we're asking Hashem for. Please allow my ratzon to align with yours so I can tap into that best version of me. Zichronot, God doesn't forget anything. There's 3 kinds of people in the world. There's a kind of person that's always forgetful. There's a kind of person that never forgets. And the third kind of person is a kind of person where not only does he never forget, but he sees the past as if it's happening in the present. That's God. When you're standing on Rosh Hashanah, Hashem sees you sitting there and doing your chet from a year ago, hopefully you did the tshuva, from 2 months ago, whenever it was. It's all happening at once. So the zichronot is Hashem, don't just remember that one moment, that lapse that I had a month ago or 2 months ago. Forget about that. Think about all the other things that are out there. Think about Abraham Avinu, because that also just happened. Akedat Yitzchak, why are we reading about it? At that moment, it's happening again. It's real. There is no time for God. There is no past, present, and future. There's only everything happening at once for Him. So we want the zichronot to be an opportunity for us to remind ourselves of our misdeeds, but we don't ask for vidui. There's no confession. That's part of the process of doing teshuvah. And we know that Rosh Hashanah is part of the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. So what is it? Where is the teshuvah in Rosh Hashanah? There is no teshuvah in Rosh Hashanah. Because Rosh Hashanah is not about focusing on my faults. It's about blowing yourself up to remind yourself of how big you could actually be. Stop minimizing your greatness. You are awesome. Don't allow your failures from your past to define where you are right now. Hayom haratom. Today is a day that you are being reborn and recreated. What do you want the year to look like? Where do you want to go? How many more excuses could you make for yourself? It wasn't my fault. It was my dad. He wasn't loving. It was my mom. She was overbearing. It was my teacher. He wasn't nice. It was my principal. We come up with a whole bunch of stuff. Excuses. But at some point, we got to face the music and ask ourselves, who do we want to be? Where do we want to go? And that is what the shofar is. You know what the shofar is? The shofar is a cry. It's the most painful cry you could think of. It's that moment when you feel like you've lost everything and there's no hope, and you're alone, and there's no one there to hear you. It's in that deep, sad place. The shofar is reminding you that you're broken because you understand what you are. When you pray on Rosh Hashanah, you are standing above the Malachim. You are a child of God. He created the universe and everything in it just for you. There was no other time in history that you could have been born in. There was no other pandemic that we could have overcome. But if we're here today, it's because this is our unique challenge. There is no other challenge for us. There are no other circumstances. There were no other families. There is no other time in history that you could have been alive in. This is our time. This is our moment. This is our day. Are you ready to seize that moment? How are we preparing for the Yom Hadin? If I told you you had a free pass into a Walmart superstore where you could take whatever you want, you only had 15 minutes, how would you prepare yourself? Well, I'll tell you what I would do. I would get a map of the store, figure out which items are in every single aisle, and then make a list of the most important items in those aisles, and then make a plan of how I'm going to fit everything I need. With that, I probably will get most of the stuff that I want. But if I didn't have that, I'll end up just taking things that I don't need. That's life. We end up walking through life just taking things, doing things that we just don't need. Rosh Hashanah is the plan. What do we want this year to look like? It doesn't end on Rosh Hashanah. It's 10 days. Rosh Hashanah is, I am awesome. I'm not going to allow the past to define me. I understand that God created a mechanism called teshuvah, which means to return to myself, return to that inner piece of excellence that has been hidden because of my reality. And I'm not going to let go of that. I'm not going to let go of that image. Everyone here has, in their mind's eye, a vision of what they are meant to be doing in this world. Don't abandon the dream. Don't abandon your excellence, your greatness. It was Shlomo Carlebach who said the difference between adults and children are that adults stop telling stories. They stop believing in dreams. Children are living in stories. They're living in dreams. They're living in potential. They never let go of that stuff. But for them, the infinite is possible. Everything is possible. There is no impossible. There's only the possible. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. It's the day when we recognize that the only thing that is holding us back from achieving our excellence is ourselves. Move beyond it. The Rosh Hashanah is the power of the head. Your mind has the power to connect the things a million miles away. We could think of the edges of our universe if we need to. We could envision black holes and how they operate without actually seeing them. We could talk about God, an infinite being. We could have conversations of the most smallest things on a molecular level. It's endless, the mind. Endless potential. You are beings that have endless potential. Now you have to believe in it. You have to believe in it. What we're aiming for, Rosh Hashanah, is the synthesis of these three things. Number one, recognizing that you have an endless bowl of potential. And the only thing holding you back from that excellence is yourself. Number two, that the day itself is about preparation. God is infinite. We have the zichronot, time, memory. We have the shofar. We have to feel the pain, the want to grow without confessing. No confession. I feel that desire to want to be more, the cry, please Hashem, help me get there. We have a whole week of Teshuvah in preparation for Yom HaKippur, a day where you can literally erase your old habits, erase the parts of you that have held you back, elevate the parts of you that you want to elevate. It's all there. The only thing that's holding you back is what's ever in your mind. I want to wish you all a Shana Tova U'Metuka. You should have a year filled with health, happiness, success, a year filled with tremendous amount of clarity, a year where you're able to recognize your inner growth, a year where you're able to appreciate the awesomeness of everything that you have and see every moment of your actions come to fruition in the most beautiful possible way. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for listening. Looking forward to seeing you back again soon.
Okay.
I'm not sure.